is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
So, JJ Wang, have you recovered from your Super Bowl? We're probably better off than those Chiefs guys in the parade from what I'm seeing on videos afterwards. Travis Kelce didn't know where he was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just following the footsteps of Tom Brady after he wins Super Bowls. Just, I mean, why not? I mean, this is what you get paid to do, and you win at the highest level. I mean, it's kind of a disappointment. Not a fan of seeing the Chiefs win, but obviously the best team, I guess.
I think we're going to have to get sick of this over the next little while because, I mean, unless someone can solve Mahomes, he's like the old Contra Konami code going on, like without the running, but it's inside his head. It just seems like you give him an inch, dude. He's gonna take that mile. So, congratulations to the Chiefs. I mean, you were the closest of us this year on get you got your team to the Super Bowl, which is more than I get. I forget. Do you remember who your AFC team was?
Oh, it was Pittsburgh.
I was Pittsburgh. Oh, hey, that's mine was the Vikings in the NFC. So I had Vikings, Ravens. Ravens we thought, but then, what's it going to go? So, everybody, we are into the off season. If you're listening to us now, it is dynasty season. We are going to spend the next couple weeks focusing on JJ Wang Q&A, and then we're going to hit some rookies, and then we're going to get into free agency, which should be exciting. Then we're going to get into the draft. My daughter said, "Dad, what in the world do you talk about? Football's over." I said, "No. Football is never over, honey. Football is always going on. It's a year-long process. Just get used to it. Accept it. That's how we live, and that's why we get to do this every week and have fun talking."
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing Dynasty, I mean, it gives you a reason to talk football all year. And for people like us, it's kind of really the only thing we talk about, football and wrestling. It's really the only thing I really know. So I get to talk about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, The Rock's coming back, so it's WrestleMania season, so it should be an exciting bunch of weeks. I'm sure we'll have lots of stuff popping in where we drop one-liners there about that going into to April. But yeah, so it's Dynasty season. If you're falling upon us by just pure dumb luck, dude, join a Dynasty League. That's it makes you feel like you're building something for us. I mean, we got a jillion dynasty teams, but it's you're building, you grow, as opposed to, hey, I luckily drafted, or the first week I picked up Kyron Williams just because he was there and I don't know who that guy is. Like Rich, I was like, I still don't know who Kyron Williams is. I was like, hey, yeah, it's you just got lucky that your dynasty guys were on there for you, and you had the good, you like the Eagles, and they're really good for dynasty. So congratulations. I mean, You're a champion. But I mean, his team dares, so sometimes you can get there without knowing some of the other guys because you can't have every player on your team. So, JJ Wang, I'm gonna throw the ball to you. You are the expert this week, and I don't know what's coming. I'm kind of excited for this. It's AFC Questions this week, right?
Yeah, I just caught some questions going into the off season as the season ended, trying to like transition from now until the beginning of the season, just to kind of like figure out how much of a difference time makes as far as their value goes. But I want to start off with the first question to you is, I know since it's Dynasty, we're able to make moves, as soon as the season's over, as soon as leagues transitions. But are you interested in making moves, or are you trying to let it are you more of like a wait and see type of guy? Maybe make like small moves that really don't do much or not much of an interest? Or are you out there trying to make a blockbuster deal?
It's I'm in a different kind of phase than I've been in the past. In the past couple of years, I've always made a lot of moves. Right now, I'm working on one with a guy trying to figure out if I want to make the move or not. And this is like tweaking moments because there's some moves at this next month you've got to think as you're looking at moves, is this guy going to be affected by free agency? Is his team locked? Is his position locked in? Because last year I was like, dude, I gave a second round pick for Kenneth Gainwell thinking he was going to be the super scat back for the Eagles. Oops, next thing you know, it's draft day and there's Swift. So that trade ended up being a pile of poo. But then again, you could trade for, say, T. Higgins. His value could go through the roof if he signs somewhere else. Whereas, like he's still got high value because he's a great receiver. But values can fluctuate in the next month. So I think it depends where you are, and if you're trying to acquire draft picks, which it depends. Those are like gold right now. So if you can draft picks, you could sell for a lot of stuff to get pieces, or good luck buying them. You got to give away the ranch.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling. So, like my first question that I have for you, right? So it's kind of along the lines of the Kenny Gainwell argument that you had. Is I'm looking at Khalil Shakir. So right now he's kind of ranked as like the 61st wide receiver, right? So that's way down there, getting pretty much third rounder, second rounder, whatever you're willing to pay. This is the kind of move I'm trying to make. Someone that came along at the end of the season, way more involved in the second half of the season than the first. Still not, I mean, he's still not great. He didn't have your top 12 performances, but he showed flashes. And with Stephon Diggs being, I'm not saying unhappy, but kind of like in that in-between spot, a little older, and Gabe Davis, who just completely disappears, Shakir should be on your radar trying to acquire him cheap now, or should you just wait because you know they're probably going to add receiver depth at some point?
Oh, Shakir's a guy I would get. I mean, you're not giving a first rounder for Shakir. If I can, he's a guy like after you said that, that was a name that came to my mind. And I'm like, why have I haven't been? I've been kind of lazy recently on looking into trades. Usually about this time is when I start looking at things. But he's the type of player I'm looking for. You're looking for the potential guy. Like but Shakir, if you watched him towards the end, you could see that Allen was looking his way a little more. And I mean, he didn't have he only had over 5 targets twice, and then he started out slow, but towards the end of the year, you saw Josh Allen looking his way. The week 17 game, which he had to win in Miami, he crushed us 6 for 105. But that's a trust getting there. And then Stephon Diggs, that's what's going to drive up Shakir's price a little more. But I think if Diggs signs somewhere or gets traded in free agency or leading up, his ceiling, I mean, he's going to go through the roof unless they sign like a T. Higgins. So it's risk reward. Like I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver one, but could he be a top 20 receiver in that offense? I really believe so. I like what I saw out of him. Did not see that coming. So yeah,
All right.
I'm on board, man. And by the way, happy birthday, Khalil Shakir. His birthday was February 3rd.
Good answer. I like where you're going with that. All right, my next one, go over to the NFC North. I'm going to talk Baltimore here. Baltimore, they've always been known to be a running team. They've been trying to add receivers here lately. They got solid tight ends. Speaking of the running game, you got J.K. Dobbins, I believe, is a free agent. Gus Edwards is a free agent. There's a couple of high-end free agent running backs that are out there. So I want you to rank these running backs if they were to come into Baltimore, okay? So let's say we got Saquon Barkley, we got Josh Jacobs, and we got Derrick Henry. Barkley's right now is like around that number 9, 10 running back. Jacobs is that 13 to 15 range. And then Derrick Henry, of course, being older, he's still a top 30, but barely hanging on. So rank those quarterbacks. How excited would you feel as far as dynasty goes with those three coming in?
Man, I think your order's where I should answer. With Barkley, Jacobs, and Henry, but there's something that just feels so good about putting Derrick Henry in that offense. Like I think Saquon is the most rounded of the three, but it's like he gets hit sideways and he'll probably be hurt. Josh Jacobs did the prove it thing there, but he still has that Josh Jacobs stank, which is undeserved. But there's something about Derrick Henry in that offense. Because he can catch, that's often missed. And I've said on here and I've said everywhere else that I just think there's 3 years in there. Baltimore doesn't need 2 running backs because they already got an RB1 in Lamar. But I mean, conventional wisdom would say Barkley, Jacobs to Henry, but I think I'm going to go I'm going to go Henry because that would give them the bruiser to keep Lamar from getting pelted, and Saquon and just injury fears, and then Josh Jacobs because I don't know. I got no reasoning. I think Baltimore fans will be happy with any of those, but they're all on the wrong side of where you want them to be. So I think they'd be foolish to sign any of them. I think they draft.
Yeah, I like Henry there. I kind of like think Henry of but Henry is a high-end Gus Edwards, right? And Gus Edwards flourished in that offense. So if you just bring a better Gus Edwards, you think the sky's the limit because Lamar Jackson has never really been a dump-off quarterback, and Jacobs and Barkley, they feed off, getting catches as well. But I think Henry, Barkley, Jacobs is the way to go there. I like that. Let's move over to let's go to the Super Bowl champions. I wasn't really going to talk about them, but this doesn't involve Pat Mahomes at all. I don't ever really want to talk about him ever again. I'm going to stick with Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. They're both on opposite ends of their career. Of course, Travis Kelce still, top tier tight end, 34, 35. Rashee Rice came on at the second half of the season, became more of a reliable wide receiver too. So, what are the chances that Rashee Rice,
very high.
Rashee Rice outscores Travis Kelce next year in fantasy?
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, I think it in PPR he's with the targets. I was pulling up as you're saying that. I was looking with that target share. Good grief, he's unless Kelce. I mean, I'm gonna pull Kelce up in a second, but Rashee Rice, I would in the playoffs, 12 targets. Then he had 4 in Buffalo, but he had 9 and then 8 in the Super Bowl. With that kind of target share, that's what you're looking for out of a receiver. So if he's getting those targets, eventually those targets are going to continue to get where Kelce gets all of his power, which is in the touchdowns. So, I mean, Rashee Rice was getting the touchdowns. But what am I saying? Kelce's 10, 6, 11, 10 in the playoffs. You're going to flip a coin, whichever guy you pick's wrong is the way life works. It's how I've lived. But I think if nothing else, the chances are about, I'm going to go 46% for next year because I still love Travis Kelce. And he proved in the playoffs that all that stuff we were saying about Kelce might not be true. I mean, the dude had 32 targets, 355, and 3 touchdowns in the NFL playoffs against top-tier teams. Maybe he's not dead like we thought he might have been as he slowed down at the end of the year. Maybe they were conserving him or not focusing on him to get Rice some targets.
Yes. So if conserving him now, they're only going to conserve him in the future, and conserving doesn't really help us fantasy players, correct? We don't want you to conserve. So I'm thinking Rashee Rice kind of takes over that offensive role, and Travis Kelce becomes like a high-end security blanket. Whenever Mahomes needs him, he's going to be there, and Rashee Rice is kind of that breakout star for next year.
I could see them easily in non-tight end premium being within 30 points of each other.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, let's go to the AFC South. Let's go to Jacksonville. 2 people that we're not high on, but I mean they're still very fantasy relevant. That's Travis Etienne. He's right around that RB 8 to 10. That's kind of where he's at. And then we got Trevor Lawrence, who's around that 10 to 12 QB range. Who finishes higher in their respective rankings? Trevor Lawrence as a QB or Travis Etienne as a running back?
It's ironic. The trade that I'm working through right now involves Trevor Lawrence. Involves trading away Trevor Lawrence. Running backs are so volatile that Travis Etienne, he's 25 years old, so he's going on the downside of a running back range. And he died. He died at the end of the year. And Trevor Lawrence somehow ended up being a top 12 quarterback, even though we thought there was the stank going on for him. I mean, Etienne did have the one good game, but otherwise, top 12, you're throwing in Aaron Rodgers to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, on a lot of them, sitting 13. I still have faith in Trevor Lawrence. Gosh, I don't like this question, dude. I should have asked the questions before. Oh, I'm going to go Etienne because that's assuming he stays healthy, knowing that 6 guys in front of him are going to get hurt. Trevor Lawrence, I think about 10, 12 is his ceiling with all those other quarterbacks, and the way he showed that he's inconsistent is probably the best way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. Of course, we want Trevor Lawrence to take that step, or we want Trevor Lawrence to be the answer to this question, but it just hasn't worked out that way with new quarterbacks coming in, injured quarterbacks coming back. I mean, can only say it's going to value Trevor Lawrence, to fall a little bit. And I think Etienne is probably remains at like that running back 10, and that's kind of where he stays. So yeah, I'd probably say both of these guys finishing like they are now, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think Etienne probably finishes maybe a spot or 2. So let's stay right there in the in the AFC South. Let's go to the Titans. It's the biggest question, or the player with the highest impact maybe on this team right now, where the most value is Tajay Spears. Derrick Henry gone, being a free agent. Spears looks to be the guy that's going to take over the running back. He looked good in spots last year. He can catch the ball. He doesn't have an ACL, so we'll see how that works out with his knees. But he looks good. So right now they got him as like running back 12, maybe up to 10 in some spots. Being that he is with the Titans aren't great. Would you be keeping Spears as running back 12, or would you be trying to capitalize on a RB1 and try to trade him away, knowing that Tennessee is not going to be very good?
Ironically, the other day I was looking at Hassan Haskins, wondering if he would be a sneaky pickup to take him, pair him with Spears, and let Spears thrive as the scat back and Haskins get pounded, if that would be a healthy thing. Because if that happens, doesn't that make Spears more valuable? He still had 4.5 per carry, so that's still pretty good, but he had 52 receptions.
It's kind of like the Tony Pollard role, right? He was more effective when he had another banger in there. He could come in and, do a different type of running back instead of getting that full workload.
I mean, I think running backs have proven that they can still excel on crappy teams. I mean, look at Steven Jackson.
Absolutely.
Steven Jackson, for a decade, was on the terrible Rams teams, got to play, one playoff game with the Patriots or something like that. But I think if you got him, I don't think you're going to get a first-round pick for him. If someone gives you a high first-rounder, trade him away. But he's a running back, and running backs are so hard that I don't know if I'd do that. I mean, he's going to get the ball, even if he doesn't get all the carries. 52 catches, that's his rookie year with Derrick Henry still getting catches. So, I mean, it's 70 targets.
Yeah, so
over 100 easy.
With this year's rookie class coming in, it's not – the running backs aren't super high right now. So, I mean, if you're coming into this season and you want to get a running back in the draft, but there's not very many good ones, and you've got a lower end first round pick, why not send that first round pick to the Tajay Spears owner, to see if it is possible to get a running back with that upside if you're looking for running backs.
You ask about that trading thing, and I think I would not do that yet until I see where the draft hashes out, because I'm a believer in dynasty draft best player available, even if I need a running back. So if I need a running back and I'm at pick 2, even if I need a running back desperately, I'm still taking Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of the receivers or one of the quarterbacks in Superflex. Regardless, I'll have 7 great receivers and then play Russian roulette with running backs. So it would still be tough like if I have 12, I'd probably do. I'd think about it. But then if I look at it, I'm like, oh, dude, if I'm looking at the top 12 and it's Superflex, there's 6 quarterbacks, and then it's like the receivers, that Marvin Harrison, the kid out of LSU. There's enough people. What pans out there? Because I'm the Super Bowl champ, I might have it. So I just talked myself back into it, didn't I?
You're a flip-flopper, man.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I'm a BPA drafter in Dynasty, but Tajay Spears, I'd give that away. But I don't have any first-round picks because I trade them away. I think players are more valuable than rookies because you don't know unless you're at even at 1 or 2. I mean, people drafted Anthony Richardson and they're drafting first again. So
that's because he got hurt. But Anthony Richardson played okay. We'll get to Anthony Richardson at some point in the future. So let's go to the back to the AFC West here. Let's stick with your favorite player. Let's go with Justin Herbert. I know how much of a fan you are of Justin Herbert. So he's currently ranked as the number 6 QB. With the influx of young rookies coming in, him having a down year, we still don't know where that team is going to be. They're kind of in a transition. All their older players are kind of phasing out, trying to bring in new ones. Is Justin Herbert still battling for that top 5 position, or is he more of just a top 10 quarterback?
Who's he throwing? Is Joshua Palmer his number 1 wide receiver? Are they bringing back Keen? I don't know off the top of my head right now. But I was thinking Mike Williams, I believe, is a free. I could be wrong,
I believe
but
so.
I believe so. And then Keenan's towards the end, they can cut and save money. So, I mean, Joshua Palmer, when he played, looked pretty good. So, are they going to do that and then move? Like, I think he's a year or two away from being back in that discussion. Is he top 10, maybe top 8 based on pure talent? Yes, I think he could easily go there. The top 5, that's when you're getting in with the running quarterbacks. To be honest, the running quarterbacks are some quarterback that throws for Tom Brady like 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. So I think without the running, I don't think he challenges it. I think he's still a guy you'd want as your quarterback for your NFL team, but fantasy, he's still top 8. I mean, he's still a quarterback 1, I believe. He's still a quarterback 1. But just as easily, if Joshua Palmer is his only receiver and Eckler stinks still, he could be a quarterback 18 by the end of the year.
All right. So speaking of receivers, this will kind of combine. I'll combine this, bring in the Cincinnati Bengals. We was talking about T. Higgins. So T. Higgins is currently ranked as like the top 15 wide receiver in that 14, 15, 16 range. Of course, he is the number 2 right in there with Cincinnati because of Jamar Chase. So let's say Higgins goes to a team like the Chargers, who are in need of a wide receiver. Does T. Higgins vault up into that top 10? Or does he just stay around? Or does he just stay in that top 15 spot?
As you're saying that, I knew where the question was going, and there's almost 2 answers to this question. The guy that goes, if you look at the receivers that have generally jumped to a new team, with the exception of like Tyreek, who just went, most of those receivers when they get that deal to be that wide receiver 1, that first year, if not longer, they never really hit that boom that you're expecting. Like if you say T. Higgins is going Justin Herbert, if you have T. Higgins, sell him for the ranch. If you want T. Higgins, go get him. That's why I was like, I'm on both sides. But because that receiver, I think Calvin Ridley, that I thought this year was going to be spectacular. He was flashed in the pan. He was there. He's hit or miss, and he's probably going to be a free agent and going somewhere. That he wasn't that great going in. So T. Higgins, I don't think he's going to be put in the top 10, top 12. He goes there, yeah, they're going to put him there. But I would temper expectations because history suggests that we're going to be let down once again because we've all jumped on that train before and then been like, oh, crap, that guy was supposed to be good. Like Allen Robinson.
Yeah, but I mean, but T. Higgins, no, but I mean, even when Jamar Chase is out of the offense, T. Higgins looks to be the guy there in Cincinnati, but of course he can't be. So I mean, I feel like going to a quarterback and a team like the Chargers, just bringing in Jim Harbaugh. So that's another. How much are they actually going to throw the ball? Jim Harbaugh likes throwing, but it's just wherever he goes to. Yeah, I think he fits in that top 12 area. So let's go to your favorite team. We'll talk about the Dolphins since we're talking AFC here. I think the biggest mark there with the Dolphins is at running back. We got Raheem Mostert probably not coming back. I'm not sure. He might. Kind of older.
He's contracted.
So the big name there is of course Devin Achane. We all know what he did last year. He had the huge beginning of the season, got injured. When he came back, started off a little slow. Then he ended the season better than those couple games where he was after he was hurt. So they currently have Achane as a top 6 running back in Dynasty. I mean, I think that sounds kind of crazy, but with a guy that's averaging 7 yards a carry, which no one's ever really done. I think it was on like so many 100 and some carries. So nobody's ever really averaged that many yards. And with him being a smaller running back, but still the threat, the Dolphins are going to bring in another running back to share the workload. Should we be valuing Achane as a top 6 dynasty value at running back, or is that really high?
That's really high. I'm the biggest Achane lover. Like it's going to be Achane and Mostert's going to be there next year because he's the closest comp I have for him. He's Fred Jackson 2.0. He didn't get the wear and tear. He didn't get it. And so Mostert, if you got him in fantasy and people are thinking he's old, get him now. He's got it at least this year, if not this and next year. Then he's going to fall off a cliff because he's 31, right? I believe. But Achane, that's that Tony Pollard syndrome we're talking about. I think if they try to run him between the tackles, sure, he's got a 203-yard game, 101-yard game, 151 yards, and then he eclipsed 73 yards once the rest of the season. He ran 6 times for 9 yards in the playoffs. He came back, they didn't give him the things because they're like, dude, yes, we finally realized you weigh 32 pounds. What is he? He is 5'9", 188. So he's not made for that. But if you put him in that role as a receiver, like we were talking about earlier with Sharp, and you go to the Alvin Kamara and you have that bruiser that takes the beating, I mean, getting Derrick Henry on the cheap would be the greatest thing they would ever sign, and be like, we love Mostert, but you're not going to because there's no cheap. But no.
So would you be trying to, same question as Spears, would you be trying to trade Achane while his value is so high, knowing that he's probably not going to reach that level? Or are you willing to just keep Achane and just have those boomer bust days?
It's a running back. For me to trade away a running back, I think is hard. I think trading for is where the risk is with him. Like, you don't know. Like, I had him this year. I was like, this is great. And then hurt, inactive, pound. From week 7 to week 11, he didn't play. He played one play in week 10. So you had all those weeks of nothing. After coming off of, your team is going to blow up 5 touchdowns in 3 weeks. 7 touchdowns in 3 weeks. You're like, this. I'm going to roll this league. Then all of a sudden, I don't have this guy until the end of the year. And he was not great. He had the one game when he came back, and other than that, he just looked fast. So he wasn't fantasy relevant. So I love the dude, that, but the reward is high. The risk is probably twice as high.
Yeah, I guess we're all hoping he can be like the was it Chris Johnson? I guess.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for. Because Chris Johnson was
a good comp.
Because Chris Johnson was a little smaller and super fast, but I think he had that 2,000-yard season where he just absolutely killed it. That's what we're hoping for. But I mean, that kind of player doesn't come around very often.
Well, he just can't
let's go to Pittsburgh. We got George Pickens right around that, covering at the wide receiver 2, and then we got Deontay Johnson hovering around wide receiver 3 territory. He's like that 35-30. It's a low end wide receiver 3. So are you more interested in Johnson at that price, or more interested in Pickens as the wide receiver 2?
I got to go Johnson because I don't know what Pittsburgh holds. I mean, they just cut Trubisky because he's too expensive. So like Rudolph is there. Pickett, and I'm hearing drafting of quarterbacks. You're going to have a rookie quarterback with these two guys. I don't want to pay up for a guy who is going to have a rookie quarterback.
I'm pretty sure Mason Rudolph will not be there. I think he's out there trying to get a little extra money, trying to capitalize on how he ended the season, which is good for him. He needs to go somewhere else. He's never going to be the guy in Pittsburgh. He doesn't always want to be that back. He wants to battle. Then there's Kenny Pickett. They've obviously said they want to bring in some competition. So if they bring in a quarterback that has a history that's able to throw the ball, it might open things up for Pickens to go down the field. But like I said, it just depends on what kind of quarterback they bring in. If they brought in like a Justin Fields, I think Deontay Johnson would be more valuable. But if they did bring in someone like a Kirk Cousins, I think George Pickens would be a little more valuable.
That was my exact thought. If Cousins signs there, my answer totally changes, and I could see Pickens moving way up because that's, Pickens isn't Jefferson, but I could see a similar kind of connection with him because Deontay Johnson would be Thielen, Thielen and Jefferson there. That's what you would have with those two guys, and they both could do well because Cousins is, he's our quiet Mendoza line. He's a guy that you want on your team. Like I would totally go that route. I got a side note for you. I know you're devastated, but just everybody, so if you're trying to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason, he does have a 2-game suspension for using performance-enhancing drugs to be as good as he was this year. I thought about you the moment that came up on my threads. I was going to bring it up, and I'd forgotten about it at the opening. But Jimmy G, 2-game suspension, so don't draft him too early this year or at all.
Don't draft him ever. He's god-awful. He's terrible. Of course, he's Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a capable quarterback. He'll end up whether it's on the Raiders. He'll end up with some team. You know, he's going to get an opportunity with some team because he always seems. All quarterbacks seem like they get an opportunity. All right, this is the last one I've got. This is one of my favorite players in all the NFL. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman.
Oh.
So he had a pretty solid year last year. I mean, he ended up, I think it was right around the top 12 area. That was with a Gardner Minshew as his quarterback. Gardner Minshew hopefully will not be his quarterback next year. We'll have Anthony Richardson back. And when Anthony Richardson was playing those first 3 games, Michael Pittman was averaging like 20 points a game. I mean, I didn't think that was possible, but I think maybe Anthony Richardson unlocked something in Michael Pittman that other quarterbacks can't. So he's right now he's wide receiver 14. Are you looking for Pittman to make that jump into the wide receiver 10 if Anthony Richardson is healthy all year?
I could say without Anthony Richardson, he could still be it. Like we've always liked the talent of Pittman, and he just didn't take that plunge. That jump, I guess, is probably the better one. He plunged a little more, but last year he got over 109 receptions. Like in the middle of the season with Gardner, he was still killing it. So he's proving he's getting to that point where he might be quarterback proof. I would take Pittman over T. Higgins. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even if T. Higgins signs with Justin Herbert, I would take Pittman getting Richardson. And my thoughts on Richardson aren't great. I would take Pittman over Richardson. On the side note, I think I've seen some. I want to say I might be crazy, but Gardner maybe to Pittsburgh. But anyway, Pittman, yeah, I would. If he plays like he did last year, and he can get like more than 4 touchdowns, could ease top 10, top 8, tops. Could he be our bold prediction as a team this year? Michael Pittman, top 5 receiver, depending upon what that team looks like by August.
I mean, it is possible with Anthony Richardson's
powerful.
Yeah, with Anthony Richardson's ability to run the ball, it kind of sucks the defense up a little bit. Leaves more for those over the top passes that Michael Pittman is really good at. I mean, he's a tall receiver; he can body people out, and especially those fades in the end zone. Hopefully, Anthony Richardson can unlock that a little bit. Yeah. So that was our AFC questions. Next week we'll do the NFC questions. I don't know. I just came up with this idea that I've been thinking a lot about coming up with all these answers. I was like, let me just ask all these to Adam and see how that works out. I think it worked out pretty good. You got any closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are enjoy the off season. Don't overthink it. Don't do anything stupid. A lot of people get too trade happy, and I think we've both seen a couple friends, Scott, who just wreck their team because they just want to trade. So enjoy trading, because if you're doing dynasty and you're not trading, you're just giving somebody your money, or you've got the best team in the league and you're playing with a bunch of monkeys. So make trades, be active, because if not, dynasties just redraft where you don't do anything. That's why I like it. I think it's because there is interaction throughout the year. We're talking even if you're just having conversations. You might not trade, you might do one trade, but have those conversations because it gives us something to talk about. That's be active.
Absolutely. That was actually going to be my words of wisdom. So you said it way better than I did. So I'll just finish it out with this. Don't trade just to trade. I mean, trade with a purpose. So as always, trust yourself and trust the process.